You know there are moments in life when it feels like everything is falling apart. Have you ever had one of those days where the weight of the world just presses down on your shoulders? When you try and you push and you give your all, yet it still doesn't work out? Maybe for you it was a business you poured your savings into, only to see it crumble. Maybe it was a relationship you fought for, but it slipped through your fingers. Or maybe it was a dream, something you carried in your heart for years that always seemed just out of reach. I've been there too. I know what it feels like to fall so hard that you start wondering, will I ever get back up again? Do I even have the strength? It's that hollow, heavy silence after failure when you sit alone with your thoughts and the future feels uncertain, even hopeless. But let me ask you something. What if that very moment when you call your worst failure is not the end? What if it's the seed of something greater? What if hidden inside that dark, painful experience lies the key to your greatest breakthrough? I discovered something powerful. Sometimes the place you break is the exact place you're meant to rebuild, stronger than before. Sometimes the setback you think is destroying you is actually shaping you. And sometimes the failure that makes you want to give up is the very failure that prepares you for your biggest win. And here's the truth I want to share with you today. The difference between people who rise from failure and those who stay stuck in it comes down to one word: perseverance. Now, perseverance doesn't sound glamorous, does it? It's not a word that makes headlines. But let me tell you, perseverance is the silent, invisible force that separates those who quit from those who win. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even timing. It's the ability to keep showing up, to keep moving forward, even when your heart is broken, even when your dreams feel crushed. So let me ask you again. What if your biggest failure is not a dead end, but a doorway? What if your lowest valley is the exact path leading to your highest mountain? When I look back at my life, I see it so clearly now. At the time, I thought I had lost everything. I thought the world was closing in on me. But today, I can honestly say, if I had not gone through that failure, if I had not learned to persevere, I would have never experienced the greatest victory of my life. And here's what's fascinating. You and I are not so different. You have your struggles. I have mine. But the principle is the same. Every single person alive will face moments when life knocks them down. The real question is, will you stay down or will you rise? Think about it. How many dreams have died not because they were impossible, but because someone gave up too soon? How many people walked away from success when it was just one more step around the corner? How many times have you almost quit on something important only to wonder later, what if I had just kept going a little longer? And maybe right now, as you're listening to this, you're in that place. Maybe you feel tired. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you're looking at a situation in your life, your career, your health, your finances, your relationships, and you're thinking, I don't know if I can keep pushing. Maybe it's just not meant for me. But let me tell you this, don't you dare underestimate the power of perseverance. Because perseverance is what turns pain into purpose. Perseverance is what transforms defeat into discipline. Perseverance is what carries you across the bridge from where you are now to where you were always meant to be. And I know it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. But every time you choose to keep going, you're building strength inside yourself that no one can take away. You're shaping a version of yourself that failure cannot break. So today, I want to take you on a journey. I want to tell you the story of how perseverance turned my darkest failure into my brightest victory. And as I share my story, I want you to see yourself in it. Because this isn't just about mites about you. It's about the part of you that's tired but still fighting. The part of you that wants to quit but deep down knows you were made for more. By the end of this video, I hope you'll walk away with more than just inspiration. I hope you'll walk away with a new perspective. I hope you'll see that your failure is not the finish line, it's the training ground. And I hope you'll leave here believing that if you choose perseverance, your biggest win is still waiting for you. So, let me ask you one last question before we dive in. What if, years from now, you look back at this very moment, one that feels like your worst failure, and realize it was the exact moment that changed everything? Wouldn't that make it worth holding on just a little longer? The breaking point. I remember it like it was yesterday. The breaking point. The moment when everything I had worked for collapsed. I had poured in my time, my money, my energy, my very heart. Sleepless nights, endless hours, dreams that kept me going. And then, just like that, it all came crashing down right before my eyes. Have you ever had that moment? That gut-wrenching moment where all your effort feels wasted. Where you stand there, staring at the ruins of something you believed in, asking yourself, how did it come to this? For me, it wasn't just the loss of a project. It was the loss of pride. The loss of identity. I felt ashamed. I felt like I had failed not only myself, but everyone who believed in me. My friends, my family, even the younger version of me who once dared to dream. And maybe you know that feeling too. Maybe you've had a relationship fall apart after you gave it everything you had. Maybe you started a business that drained your savings and left you with nothing but debt. Maybe you tried to change your life, your health, your career, your habits, only to stumble so many times that you wondered if you should just give up. That's the breaking point. That's the place where your spirit whispers, this is it. I can't go any further. And I'll be honest with you. In that moment, I thought my story was over. I thought life had handed me a final defeat. I wanted to hide. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to give up. But here's the truth I wish someone had told me earlier. Failure is never the end unless you decide to quit. Think about that for a second. Failure itself does not end your story. Only quitting does. History is full of people who stood at their breaking point. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before he created the light bulb. Imagine if he had said, that's it, I'm done. We might still be living in darkness. J.K. Rowling faced rejection after rejection before Harry Potter became a phenomenon. What if she had given up on the 7th rejection? The breaking point is not the end. It is a test. It is life asking you, how much do you really want this? Are you willing to keep going when everything tells you to stop? And let me tell you something, you are stronger than you think. The very fact that you've reached a breaking point means you've been pushing yourself, stretching yourself, chasing something bigger than comfort. That is something to honor, not to hide. I remember sitting in that darkness, wondering if I had anything left. And then a small voice inside whispered, not yet. Don't quit yet. That whisper saved me. It reminded me that as long as I had breath in my lungs, I had another chance to rise. Maybe you need to hear that same whisper today. Maybe right now, in your career, your health, your finances, or your relationships, you feel like you've hit the wall, like you can't keep going, like you've failed too many times to try again. But what if you're wrong? What if this breaking point isn't the end of your journey, but the beginning of a new one? What if the pain you feel today is not punishment, but preparation? Every great success story has a breaking point. It's the universal law of growth. You cannot rise without first falling. You cannot succeed without first failing. and you cannot build strength without first being tested. So the question is not, will I face failure? The question is, what will I do when it comes? Will you give up, or will you rise again? Because the truth is, our story is not finished. Not yet. And maybe, just maybe, this breaking point you're in right now is the very doorway to the life you've always dreamed of. Pause, lean in, stronger voice. Don't stop here. Don't let this be the chapter where your story ends. Failure only wins if you give it the final word. Perseverance is how you take back the pen. So ask yourself, what if this isn't the end? What if this is the moment that changes everything? 2. The power of choice in the darkest hour. There is something about the darkest hour that strips everything away. All the noise, all the distractions. It's just you, your thoughts, and the silence that follows failure. I remember sitting there after everything had fallen apart. My plans, my confidence, my sense of who I wasted all felt shattered. And in that heavy silence, I realized something simple but life-changing. I had a choice. Yes, even in the deepest darkness, we still have choices. One option was easy. I could give in to despair. I could let failure define me. I could say, this is it. I've tried, I've failed, and I'm done. Haven't we all felt that temptation? To just walk away and stop trying. To let go of the weight and sink into defeat. But there was another option that was much harder: to persevere, to keep going, to stand up even when I didn't know where the next step would lead, to keep walking through the fog even when I couldn't see the path ahead. And that's the truth about perseverance. It doesn't mean you know exactly what to do next. It doesn't mean you have all the answers. Perseverance simply means refusing to let failure have the final word. Refusing to let your story end here. Think about it. Every time you face a challenge, life presents you with those same 2 doors. Door 1, quit. Door 2, continue. And whichever door you choose determines the direction of your future. Which one will you walk through? Maybe right now, in your career, you're staring at rejection after rejection. You send out resumes, applied for jobs, and nothing has worked. You feel invisible. The easy door is to quit, to say, maybe I'm just not good enough. Or maybe in your personal life, you've tried to repair a broken relationship. You've poured energy into it, and yet it feels like nothing changes. The easy door is to close your heart and give up on love. Or maybe it's your own self-growth. You have promised yourself countless times that you would change, that you would eat healthier, start exercising, wake up earlier, build better habits. And yet you keep stumbling. The easy door is to accept defeat and tell yourself, this is just who I am. But let me ask you, what if greatness lives on the other side of the harder choice? What if perseverance's simple act of continuing is the very thing that will carry you to the breakthrough you've been waiting for? You see, in those moments when you feel lost, the choice isn't really about success or failure. It's about identity. Who are you going to be? Are you going to be someone who lets failure define you? Or someone who uses failure to refine you? And here's the beautiful part. Every time you choose perseverance, even in the smallest way, you are shaping yourself into a stronger person. You are proving to yourself that you are bigger than your circumstances. I'll be honest, when I chose perseverance, I didn't suddenly feel strong. I didn't suddenly feel inspired. In fact, I still felt broken. But I realized something. You don't have to feel strong to act strong. You don't have to feel ready to take the next step. You just have to decide. And decision is powerful. Decision is what shifts the entire trajectory of a life. Think of the heroes we admire. Martin Luther King Jr. chose perseverance in the face of injustice. Nelson Mandela chose perseverance through decades in prison. Helen Keller chose perseverance even when the world told her she was limited. None of them knew the exact path ahead. They simply refused to let their story end in despair. And if they could choose perseverance in moments that dark, then so can we. So can you? So let me turn the question back to you. Where in your life right now do you feel like giving up? Where do you feel like you've reached the end of your strength? And what would happen if you chose, just for one more day, to persevere? Because here's the thing, you may not see the result tomorrow. You may not feel the change immediately, but perseverance plants seeds that grow silently beneath the surface. And one day, when you least expect it, those seeds will break through into something greater than you imagined. In your darkest hour, your greatest power is your power of choice. So don't let failure write your ending. Pick up the pen. Keep writing. Choose perseverance. Pause, soft but firm tone. And remember, you don't need to know the whole path. You just need to take the next step. 3. Redefining failure. Most people see failure as the proof that they are not good enough. That's what I used to believe too. Every time I failed, I thought it meant something about method. I wasn't smart enough, talented enough, strong enough. But let me ask you, what if failure doesn't mean you're not good enough at all? What if failure is not a verdict but a message? Think about it. When you touch a hot stove, the pain isn't there to punish you. The pain is there to teach you. Don't touch it this way again. What if failure works the same way? What if it's simply life saying, not this path, try another one? That simple shift changes everything. Because when you define failure as proof of weakness, you become paralyzed. You stop trying. You shrink your dreams. You settle for less than you're capable of. But when you redefine failure as feedback as a teacher, it loses its power to cripple you. Suddenly, failure is not the end. It's the lesson that prepares you for the next attempt. Let me give you an example. Thomas Edison didn't fail 1,000 times at making the light bulb. He discovered 1,000 ways that didn't work. Each so-called failure wasn't proof he couldn't succeed, it was the exact information he needed to eventually succeed. Now let's bring it closer to home. How many times in your life have you avoided taking a risk because you were afraid of failing? Maybe it was starting a business, learning a new skill, pursuing a relationship, or chasing a dream you've carried for years. How many times have you told yourself, "What if I fail?" But what if you asked a different question? What if instead you asked, "What will I learn if I fail?" That question opens doors instead of closing them. I remember when I first tried a project that I thought would change my life. I invested time, money, energy, and it collapsed. At first, I felt humiliated. I thought it was the end. But when I looked back, I realized that experience gave me skills, connections, and wisdom I would have never gained otherwise. That failure became the foundation for my next win. And maybe the same is true for you. Maybe the things that haven't worked out in your past weren't wasted time at all. Maybe they were laying the groundwork for something you can't see yet. So let me ask you, what if you stopped seeing failure as the enemy and started seeing it as your coach? How different would your life look? Think about children learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they get back up. We don't look at a baby falling and say, "Wow, I guess walking isn't for them." We understand it's part of the process. So why do we judge ourselves so harshly when we stumble as adults? Falling down is how we learn to stand tall. Here's the truth. Success is not built in spite of failure. Success is built through failure. Every mistake teaches you something vital. Every setback gives you perspective. Every obstacle strengthens your resilience. The problem is not failure itself. The problem is the story you tell yourself about what that failure means. If you tell yourself it means you're not good enough, you stop. But if you tell yourself it means you're growing, you keep going. And over time, the ones who keep going are the ones who win. So I invite you to look at your own life. Where have you been holding on to the shame of failure? Where have you told yourself the story that your failure means you're not worthy, not talented, not capable? And what would happen if you changed that story today? Because once you redefine failure, you reclaim your power. You stop being paralyzed. You stop letting fear hold you back. You start to move again, and with each step, you get closer to the life you want. Slight pause, stronger voice. So remember this. Failure is not your enemy. Failure is your feedback. Failure is your guide. Failure is proof that you are in the arena, that you are trying, that you are alive. And if you can embrace failure as your teacher, you will discover that every setback you face is secretly setting you up for a greater comeback. 4. The habit of perseverance. Perseverance is not a one-time decision. It's not a dramatic moment where you grit your teeth once and everything magically changes. No, perseverance is a habit. It's what you do every single day, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. Think about it. Anyone can show up once. Anyone can push hard for a moment when the excitement is fresh, when motivation is high. But real perseverance begins the morning after, when the excitement fades, when your body feels tired, when your mind whispers, "Why bother?" Have you ever had one of those mornings? You wake up and you don't feel like doing it anymore. You don't feel like working out. You don't feel like making that phone call. You don't feel like opening that book or writing that page. And the temptation is so strong to say, "I'll do it tomorrow." But perseverance is built in that exact moment. Because perseverance isn't about doing big things once in a while. It's about doing small things consistently. It's about waking up, putting one foot in front of the other, and saying, "I may not see the results yet, but I trust the process." For me, it started small. I began with the tiniest actions, reading a few pages of a book each morning, writing down my goals even when they felt impossible, making one phone call, setting up one meeting, taking one step toward the vision I held in my heart. And here's what I discovered. Small steps, repeated daily, create momentum. And momentum is magic. Momentum is the invisible bridge between failure and success. When you're at rock bottom, success feels like a mountain you can't possibly climb. But momentum through small, consistent steps becomes the rope that pulls you upward. Think about water dripping on stone. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops, it looks like nothing is happening. But over time, the stone erodes. The same is true for your habits. Small actions don't just add up. They multiply. They change who you are. And let's be honest, most of us overestimate what we can do in a week, but we underestimate what we can do in a year of steady perseverance. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine wanted to run a marathon. At first, the thought of running 26 miles was overwhelming. Impossible. But he didn't start with 26 miles. He started with 1 mile a day, then 2, then 5. And after months of building the habit, he crossed the finish line of a marathon. The secret wasn't talent. It wasn't a burst of motivation. It was the daily habit of showing up, step after step. So let me ask you, what dream of yours looks impossible right now? What goal feels too far away, too overwhelming, too heavy to carry? And what would happen if you broke it down into small, daily steps and simply refused to stop? You see, perseverance is not about intensity, it's about consistency. Anyone can run fast for a short distance, but winners are those who keep running mile after mile, day after day, long after others have stopped. And here's the thing, when perseverance becomes a habit, it stops feeling like a struggle. It becomes part of who you are. Just like brushing your teeth, just like making your bed, perseverance becomes something you do without question. But here's the key, you can't wait for motivation to create that habit. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. Some days it's sunny, some days it's stormy. If you depend on motivation, you'll stop the moment the storm comes. But if you depend on habit, you'll keep going regardless of how you feel. And the beautiful part, the habit of perseverance doesn't just change your results. It changes your identity. You begin to see yourself differently. You begin to believe, I am someone who keeps going. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who doesn't quit. That belief is powerful. That belief will carry you when your energy fades, when your emotions wobble, when the world tells you to stop. So here's my challenge for you. Don't focus on the giant leap. Focus on the next small step. Write that one page. Make that one call. Do that one workout. Read that one chapter. Build the habit of perseverance, one brick at a time. Because brick by brick, you'll build a wall. Step by step, you'll climb the mountain. Habit by habit, you'll transform your life. 5. The turning point when effort compounds. Here's something I didn't realize at first, my effort was never wasted. Even in those long weeks, those painful months when it felt like nothing was happening, something was happening. Something invisible. Something powerful. It just took time for me to see it. For so long, I thought I was stuck. I showed up, I put in the work, I stayed consistent, but there were no immediate results. And if you've ever been there, you know how discouraging that feels. You ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I pouring my heart into something that isn't moving forward? But here's the truth, effort compounds. The work you put in today may not show tomorrow, but it builds, it stacks, it multiplies in silence, and then when you least expect it, something shifts. I began to notice small changes. Opportunities that weren't there before suddenly appeared. People I had never met suddenly walked into my life. Skills I thought were useless began to make sense. And slowly, piece by piece, what looked like my worst failure became the foundation for my greatest win. It's just like planting a seed. You don't plant a seed today and expect to see a tree tomorrow. No. At first, nothing looks different. The soil still looks empty. You water it. You care for it. You wait and wait. And sometimes you wonder if anything is happening at all. But beneath the surface, the roots are spreading. They're digging deep. They're building strength you cannot see. And then, one day, without warning, the stem breaks through the soil. Growth becomes visible. And eventually, if you stay patient, you will harvest the fruit. Life works the same way. Your consistent efforts, late nights, the small habits, the choices to keep going when no one's watching, they are seeds. And even if you don't see progress yet, something is growing. Something is taking root beneath the surface. So let me ask you, where in your life right now do you feel like giving up because you don't see results? Is it in your career where you've been grinding and nothing seems to change? Is it in your health where you've been trying to build new habits but the scale won't budge? Is it in your relationships where you've been showing love, giving energy, and yet things feel the same? What if the breakthrough is closer than you think? What if all your unseen effort is about to break through the soil? Would you keep going? This is the law of compound effort. Every small action matters. Every step builds on the last. Every insignificant attempt adds up. And here's the kicker. Success doesn't arrive gradually. It often arrives sudden like a flood. For months or years, nothing seems to happen, and then one day, everything changes. But here's the tragedy. Most people quit right before the breakthrough. They stop watering the seed. They stop showing up. They give up on the gym just before the results would have shown. They quit the business just before the opportunity arrived. They walk away from the relationship just before healing could have begun. Don't let that be your story. Let me share something personal. At one point in my life, I felt like I was invisible. I was working harder than ever, creating, building, reaching out, and no one seemed to notice. I was so close to walking away, but I chose to keep going. And then, almost overnight, things shifted. A new opportunity opened. A connection changed everything. And looking back, I realized the shift wasn't sudden at all. It was the result of every tiny effort I had made, quietly compounding in the background. Maybe your turning point hasn't arrived yet, but maybe it's closer than you think. So I'll ask you again, what seed are you planting right now? And are you willing to keep watering it, even when you don't see the growth yet? Because the day will come, the day when your unseen roots break through into visible results. And when that day comes, you'll realize none of your effort was wasted. Every tear, every late night, every failure was all building something you couldn't see. Firm, uplifting tone, so don't stop. Don't give up just because you don't see results yet. Your effort is compounding. Your breakthrough is on the way. Remember, success isn't always visible in the beginning. But just like a seed, if you stay patient, if you stay faithful, if you keep nurturing your dream, a harvest is inevitable. 6 stories of perseverance around us. Sometimes we think perseverance is only for extraordinary people, those rare individuals born with genius, talent, or luck. But that's not true. Perseverance is not reserved for the chosen few. It is the quiet power that has fueled every great story you've ever heard. Think about Thomas Edison. History tells us he failed more than 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. Imagine that for a moment. Over 1,000 attempts. How many of us would have quit after 10, after 50, after 100? Yet Edison kept going. When people asked him about his failures, he didn't even call them failures. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's perseverance. It's the ability to look at failure and say, this is not the end, it's simply part of the process. Or consider J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, she was a single mother, broke, depressed, living on government assistance. She sent her manuscript to publisher after publisher and was rejected over and over again. Some even told her the story wasn't worth printing. Can you imagine that? Harry Potter, one of the most beloved stories in the world, almost never existed because of rejection. But she didn't give up. She kept submitting, kept believing, kept persevering. And when finally one small publisher decided to take a chance, it changed her life and the lives of millions of readers around the globe. Now let me ask you, what if Edison had stopped at his 500th failure? What if Rowling had put her manuscript in a drawer after the 12th rejection? The world would look very different today. And that's the point. Failure did not end their story. It became the stepping stone that carried them to success. But here's where it gets interesting. These aren't just famous people's stories. Perseverance is all around us. It's in the single father working 2 jobs while studying at night to give his kids a better life. It's in the woman who battles illness but keeps showing up every day with courage. It's in the young student who keeps applying for scholarships despite rejection, determined to create a brighter future. You see, perseverance is not about fame. It's not about glory. It's about ordinary people refusing to quit and, by doing so, creating extraordinary results. So, let me ask you directly, what's your story going to be? When life pushes you down, when doors slam shut, when rejection stings, will you let that be the end? Or will you keep going like Edison, like Rowling, like countless others who chose perseverance over despair? Because if perseverance could turn Edison's 1,000 failures into a light that changed the world, if perseverance could turn Rowling's rejections into one of the most successful book series in history, why couldn't it turn your struggle into something great? The truth is, it can. But here's the catch. You have to believe your story is worth continuing. You have to believe your seed is worth watering. You have to believe that your life, your dream, your vision matters enough to keep going when everything around you tells you to stop. So here's a challenge for you. Think of one area in your life right now where you feel defeated. Just one. And then ask yourself, if Edison could try 1,000 times, if Rowling could endure countless rejections, can I take one more step? Can I try one more time? Because perseverance is not about doing everything all at once. It's about doing the next thing, writing the next page, making the next call, taking the next step, and that one step could be the very one that changes everything. Firm, rising tone. Remember, failure is not final. Rejection is not permanent. Perseverance has turned the world's biggest failures into history's greatest triumphs, and it can do the same for you. So the only real question is, will you keep going? 7. The emotional battle: fear, doubt, and shame. I'm not going to lie to you, perseverance isn't just about action. It's not only about waking up early, setting goals, and grinding through the day. No, the hardest part of perseverance is the emotional battle. Because let's be honest, it's not the work that usually stops us. It's how we feel while doing the work. Fear whispers, "You're not good enough." Doubt asks, "What if this is all a waste of time?" And shame says, "Who are you to even try? You should just give up before you embarrass yourself again." Do those voices sound familiar? I know them well. I've heard them in my own head louder than any outside critic. And I bet you've heard them too. Maybe right now, you're fighting one of them. Fear is powerful. Fear paints pictures of failure before it even happens. It convinces you not to take the leap, not to make the call, not to try again. Because if you don't try, you can't fail, right? That's the lie fear tells. Then comes doubt. Doubt is sneaky. It creeps in after you've already started. You're in the middle of your journey, and suddenly you think, what if I'm wasting my time? What if this doesn't work? What if I'm just fooling myself? And with every question, your energy drains. And then there's shame. Shame is heavy. Shame is cruel. It reminds you of every mistake you've ever made, every failure, every time you fell short. And it says, "See, that's who you are. Why even bother trying again?" That's the emotional battlefield. And if you've ever wondered why perseverance is so hard, it's because you're not just fighting circumstances. You're fighting your own emotions. But here's the good news. Perseverance has a voice too. A quiet, steady voice that answers fear, doubt, and shame. Perseverance says, yes, I'm scared. Yes, I have doubts. Yes, I've failed before. But still he will continue. That's courage in action. That's faith with legs. Think about it. Every person you admire has fought this same battle. Do you think Edison didn't feel fear after his 100th failure? Do you think J.K. Rowling didn't doubt herself after her 12th rejection? Do you think Nelson Mandela didn't feel shame after years in prison, wondering if his sacrifices would ever matter? Of course they did. They were human, just like you, just like me. The difference is they kept going anyway. And maybe that's the real definition of perseverance. Not the absence of fear, doubt, or shame, but the refusal to let those emotions decide your future. Let me give you a simple image. Imagine you're driving a car. Fear, doubt, and shame. They're like backseat drivers. They're loud, they're distracting, they keep shouting directions. But here's the key, you don't have to hand them the wheel. You hear them, you acknowledge them, but you keep your hands on the steering wheel and keep driving toward your destination. So let me ask you, which of these voices has been the loudest in your life lately? Is it fear telling you you're not good enough? Is it doubt making you second-guess your dream? Or is it shame reminding you of past mistakes? And more importantly, what would your life look like if you stopped letting those voices control your actions? Here's what I've learned. Emotions are real, but they are not final. Fear doesn't mean stop. Doubt doesn't mean quit. Shame doesn't mean you're broken. They're signals, not sentences. And perseverance is choosing to keep walking, even when those voices are screaming. So here's a perspective shift. What if fear is actually proof that you're on the right path? What if doubt is evidence that you're stretching beyond your comfort zone? What if shame is simply the echo of your past, trying to keep you from building your future? What if, instead of seeing these emotions as enemies, you saw them as signs that growth is happening? Pause. Stronger tone. Perseverance is not glamorous. It's not a Hollywood moment of victory with music swelling in the background. More often, perseverance is quiet. It's you, in your room, deciding to try again tomorrow. It's you, facing your fear and saying, I'll take the next step anyway. It's you hearing doubt and saying, I'll keep moving forward. It's you feeling shame and saying, I'm not my past. I'm who I choose to become. That's the battle. That's the victory. So if you're in that battle right now, I want you to know you are not alone. Every person who has ever achieved anything worth celebrating has fought the same fight. And if they could persevere, so can you. Remember this, perseverance is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of it. It's choosing action over paralysis. It's choosing faith over fear. It's choosing progress over perfection. So the next time fear whispers, the next time doubt questions, the next time shame tries to silence you, let perseverance be the louder voice. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply say, even so, I will continue. 8. The greatest victory who you become. You know, for a long time, I believed victory meant achieving the goal. I thought it was the trophy, the promotion, the recognition, the money in the bank. And don't get me wrong, those things feel good. They matter. But here's the truth that I didn't see at first. The greatest victory isn't what you achieve. The greatest victory is who you become along the way. Think about it. Every goal you've ever pursued, whether it was fitness, career, relationships, or personal growth, forced you to change in order to reach it. You had to learn discipline. You had to practice resilience. You had to develop patience, self-control, or courage. The real prize wasn't the goal itself. It was the transformation happening inside of you. Let me ask you, have you ever set out to reach something and when you finally got there, the achievement itself almost felt smaller than the journey you took to get there? You look back and realize the person who started the journey could never have handled the victory. It took every failure, every late night, every doubt, every restarto mold you into someone strong enough to receive it. That's the hidden gift of perseverance. I used to think my biggest victory was finally breaking through after years of failure. But when I look back now, I see it differently. The real victory wasn't the result I achieved. The real victory was that I became wiser. I became stronger. I became more resilient. That's what can never be taken away. And here's why this matters. Goals will come and go. You'll reach one and then another will appear. You'll celebrate and then the celebration fades. But who you are becoming, that stays with you for life. The question is, what are you becoming right now? Because every day, whether you realize it or not, you are shaping yourself. The way you respond to challenges, the way you handle setbacks, the way you keep going when it's easier to quit, it's the training ground of character. And character is the foundation of every victory. Let me share an image with you. Imagine climbing a mountain. At first, you think the summit is the prize. You think the view from the top is what it's all about. But then, halfway up, you realize every step you take is shaping your legs, your lungs, your heart. You're not just climbing the mountain is shaping you. And when you finally reach the top, yes, the view is breathtaking. But the greater gift is that you're no longer the same person who started at the bottom. You're stronger, you're transformed. So maybe the real question isn't, did I reach the summit? But rather, who did I become on the way up? This shift changes everything. Because sometimes you'll chase a dream and you won't get it. Not right away. Maybe not at all. But does that mean you lost? Not if the journey made you stronger, wiser, more resilient. Not if it made you into someone who can handle bigger challenges tomorrow. Let me tell you something. Every so-called failure I've ever experienced gave me one of the most powerful victories of my life, the victory of becoming someone I never thought I could be. More patient, more disciplined, more courageous. And here's the beautiful paradox: when you focus on who you're becoming instead of obsessing over when the result will come, you actually speed up your success. Because success isn't just about doing more. It's about being more. So, let me ask you again, who are you becoming? Are you becoming the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves? The kind of person who can face fear and still take action? The kind of person who can handle rejection, stand tall, and try again? Because if you are, then you're already winning, even if the outside world can't see it yet. Napoleon Hill once said, "Victory is always possible for the person who refuses to stop fighting," and I would add this. The greatest victory isn't just winning the fight, it's discovering the strength inside you that you never knew existed. So here's my challenge for you today. Stop measuring your life only by the trophies, the promotions, the numbers in the bank account. Start measuring your life by the courage you show, the resilience you build, the wisdom you gain. Because one day, when you look back, you'll realize the goals mattered, but the transformation mattered more. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real reason life gives us challenges. Not to punish us, not to break us, but to shape us into the kind of person who can carry the weight of true victory. So the next time you feel tired, the next time you wonder if it's worth it, remember this: you're not just chasing a dream, you're building yourself. and that is the greatest victory of all. So, what's the real lesson here? Perseverance is not glamorous. It doesn't give you instant victories or overnight success. It's not something you can post on social media and get applause for. Perseverance is quieter. It's more personal. It's that decision you make when no one's watching. Quitting feels easier, when walking away would hurt less, when your mind is screaming that it's over, and yet you choose to take one more step. That's the essence of perseverance. It's refusing to give up, even when every reason to quit is right there in front of you. It's finding strength in the very moment you thought you had none left. I used to believe that my failures were the end of the road. I thought they were proof that I just wasn't good enough, that I didn't have what it takes. But perseverance sequiet, steady, often not astern those failures into the foundation of my greatest victory. And if it can do that for me, it can absolutely do the same for you. Because here's the truth. Perseverance is not about talent. It's not about luck. It's not about waiting for the perfect opportunity. Perseverance is simply about showing up again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Now let me ask you something to questions that could change the way you see your life today. In your life right now, what's the one area where you feel like giving up? Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's your career. Maybe it's your health. Or maybe it's simply the dream you once believed in but now feels out of reach. Where do you feel like quitting? And the second question, what would happen if just for today you chose to persevere one more time? Not forever, not for the rest of your life. Just today, what if, instead of walking away, you took one more step? Because here's the beautiful possibility. The very failure that feels like your greatest defeat may be the one preparing you for your greatest triumph. Pause. Softer, more intimate tone. This is the heartbeat of Napoleon Hill's message. This is the secret that so many miss. Inside every adversity, there is a seed of equal or even greater benefit. But you can only discover that seed if you refuse to quit, if you stay long enough to let the pain shape you, to let the challenge refine you, to let perseverance unlock what quitting never will. So, don't stop, don't quit. Don't silence the voice inside you that whispers, keep going. Because your victory is closer than you think. Pause. Voice lowers, calm but powerful, almost meditative. This is Napoleon Hill's Secrets. And I want you to remember this, not just as words, but as a truth you carry with you. Inside every adversity lies the seed of an equal or greater advantage. You are stronger than you know. You are closer than you realize. And perseverance is the bridge that will take you there. So keep going. One more day. One more step. One more try. Your victory is waiting.